Hello, everyone. Mark Gilliard here for AIM Country Music Television, and my guest is H. Jack Williams. He started life in Tennessee, spent his early life in Florida, and as a storyteller, singer, and songwriter, he migrated back to Nashville. He's a Marine, a classically trained chef. He's been a roadie for no less than The Who, and he's a bit of a low-key legend in his own right, having written for, written with, and performed with some of the most iconic names in entertainment. Jack has had some good luck, but in a bunch of cases, this guy's made his own luck. He knocked on Richie Havens' hotel room door until Havens let him in, leading to the opportunity to open for Havens and an introduction to the legendary producer and record executive, Clive Davis. He applied the same tenacity to get an introduction to The Who, approaching the road crew and talking them into letting him in. This led to his work as a roadie, but also to touring with the band, getting his first publishing deal, and a couple of years of priceless mentoring with one of rock's greatest acts. Jack is here today to talk about his video for One More Day. He's a unique singer, a prolific songwriter. His body of work spans radio, television, and movies. He writes songs that really tell a story. Let's get him in here right now to talk about what might just be your new favorite song. Jack, thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be here. It really is.
Well, thank you so much. I just want to fire it right up, right out of the gate with a little intro to get people up to speed. You've collaborated with, you've opened for, written for some pretty big names. Tell us how you got started, some of the things you've done, where you're headed this year. You know, yours is a pretty extensive story, so feel free to relax and take as much time as you'd like.
Well, to sum it up in a nutshell, after I got out of the Marines in 72, 73, I wanted to be a songwriter. I knew I wanted to be a songwriter, but I didn't know how to go about doing it. And the first place I landed was as a roadie for a big, they were a cover band out of Ohio. They were called Law, and they pretty much owned the whole Eastern Seaboard. And they were a big band. They had a great following. They had some great original songs. And I just began a roadie for them. And while I was a roadie for them, I started writing songs for them. And then that sort of went its own way. They kind of went and did something, and I kind of went another direction. And I met Richie Havens. And when I met Richie Havens, then I started really getting into finding out what it was to be a songwriter and an artist. Richie was my mentor. Richie taught me, he taught me everything about being a great human being, how to be an artist, treat people, how to open up shows properly, how to just do everything. And he just got my first song published, and then from there, fast forward, I met The Who. I met Roger Daltrey and Pete Townsend, and they gave me my first big break. They signed me to a publishing deal in their publishing company that was called William Tell Publishing, and they gave me a year. And so once a month, I would send 8 songs in England, and he would critique them, send them back. I would learn from that, and boom, boom, boom. Then, toward the end of that deal, my hero at the time, my songwriting hero at the time, was a guy by the name of Ken Hensley, and he was the lead songwriter and the keyboard player in a band called Uriah Heep. And at the time, I was just telling somebody this the other day that didn't know this. At the time, Led Zeppelin, Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, and Uriah Heep were called the Big Four. They were the biggest rock bands in the world. They could sell out Madison Square Garden. And I just loved Ken. I just loved the way he wrote. I drifted that way where all my other friends would drift sort of to the West Coast, to the West Coast bands. I drifted to him. And so I met him early 76-ish, and I gave him a demo tape, and he said he'd take it home with him. It was the last night of his tour. He said he would take it home with him, and and if anything was there, he'd give me a call. And sure enough, about 6 months later, I pick up the phone and he says, "Hello, is this Jack?" And I said, "Yes, this is Ken Hensley." Oh, whoa. And I went, he said, "I really like what you do, buddy." And I went, "Well, thank you." And he went, "How'd you like to move to England?" I went, "What?" And he went, "Yeah." He said, "Yeah." He said, "Why don't you come over here and write for me?" He said, "I've got my own publishing company." He said, "Can't give you a lot of money." He said, "Give you enough." He said, "But I get you a little cottage, give you a little car, give you some money, and what the best part about it is that you'll write with me, and it's a good chance Uriah Heep will record your song." But we've never, ever recorded an outside songwriter song. So I jumped ship. I was married, and he said, "You can't bring your wife right now. It's gonna have to be a long distance relationship. I mean, she can come over here and visit you, and you can go home and visit her, but we can't support a family." And I said, "Okay." And he went, he taught me something I'll never forget. He was said, "Jack, remember one thing: opportunity only knocks. You either walk through that door or you don't." And I did. So I walked through the door. I went to England, and 1976, 77, 78, 79 were just huge years for a young boy that was only 23 years old. I mean, I was running with Clapton. I was running with Alvin Lee. I mean, I had Bad Company playing on my demos. I had George Harrison playing slide guitar on my demos.
That's
Kenny had his
crazy.
own. Yeah, I know. I mean, he had his own demo studio, and so it was like they just all lived down the street. So, "Hey, George, come over here and play slide guitar. This dude, bring a beer, smoke a joint." I mean, whatever. And so that was a great time. Uriah, he recorded 6 of my songs, and Kenny and I, we became great friends. But then, during that period, 1976, Leonard Skinner was over there, and they were getting ready to open up for the Rolling Stones and the famous Network Profit. Both of them was there. And I met Ronnie Van Zant, Alan Collins, and Gary Rosington, and we became instant friends because I was from Florida, they were from Florida, and they liked me, I liked them, and we just. So it was toward the end of that deal. I had a 5-year deal with Kenny, and toward the end of that deal, and Ronnie said, "Why don't you move to Jacksonville?" So when your deal's over with, come back to Jacksonville and let's do the fishing. So I did. I moved back to Jacksonville and met all the guys in 38 Special, and we all hung out. And I started playing the clubs around there, just doing what I do and write and everything. But then, it was like, this is Jacksonville, Florida, Jack. You just came from London. You got to keep going. You got to keep going up. And this isn't up. This is sideways. This is where you go when you're done. And so I called Richie. He said, "Well, you can come back to New York if you want." And I wasn't sure about the New York thing. And then I met Greg Allman and Dickie Betts. And when I met Greg Allman and Dickie Betts, I had a little band at that same time, and Dickie produced it. And Dickie said, "Jack, you know where you need to be?" And I went, "Where?" He said, "You need to be in Nashville. That's where songwriters live." And I went, "Oh, okay." So up I went. I got to Nashville, 86-ish, and I had a briefcase full of songs that were hits in England with Uriah Heep. I walked into the publishing company's offices, and they went, "What is that junk? That ain't music. What is that slop? I mean, what do you call that, buddy?" "Well, I mean, they're on gold records, sir." "I don't care. That's crap." "Oh, but you know what? But we can see you have talent. So we'll tell you what. If you want to work with us, you keep your mouth shut, you listen to some of our big songwriters, and you work yourself in slowly, you might be successful." But I did it, and I was. I mean, I went to work for the Oak Ridge Boys, and they cut a couple of my songs, and then one thing led to another, and then Greg Allman cut one, and then just things kept moving on. That took me into the 90s. And I took a little break from the music business in the 90s, and because I got into a bad publishing deal, and so I needed to give it some time to wear itself out. So I went back to work as a chef, which is what I always was. Only this time I went back to work on a chef on merchant marine ships, working on cargo ships and research vessels all over the world. And that took me to a place where we were running Patriot missiles and war gear over to Desert Storm, and we got attacked. A Scud missile came that way. Our Patriot missile took it out, and I said, you know what? I'm going back to songwriting right now. I am not doing this. So on back to Nashville I went and picked it right back up and just kept doing what I was doing, and that took me into about around 2000. Then I got back into it. I landed a couple deals, got back into it, had a bunch more cuts, and that takes us up to about 8 years ago when I met Kevin. I wanted to work with Kevin. I met Kevin and started writing songs with a couple guys in his band. Kevin loved my songwriting. We were somehow, I don't know how, but we became best friends, and to this day, and so I got a song in Yellowstone. Kevin recorded 4 songs on his Tales from Yellowstone album, and then I got to be in his new movie, a pretty good part too. This last October, and now I'm and during that period, you know, I put my video out recently. One More Day, Kevin wrote that with me, and we had Gary Rosington playing guitar on it, and so that's out there now. And I think I've just signed with a new manager, Sharon Corbett. She manages Joe Bonamassa, Eric Gale. I'm proud to be part of that stable. I'm signed with Anthem Music. And I think I'm going to do a new EP, only this time, instead of what I did, I think I'm going to do something that's really stripped down. It's got like I don't know, for the lack of a better word, like if he took Tom Waits and Leonard Cohen and Johnny Cash and threw them in a mixer and spun it all around, poured it out. That's the kind of sound I'm looking for, and that's where I'm at now.
I look forward to that. That sounds good. You mentioned Richie Havens and the Who. Those were not just luck, were they? You kind of stuck your foot in the door to get those to happen, didn't you? From what I've read about you,
I stuck my foot in the door to get everything that happened. From the time I started, you know, I think every songwriter or anybody, they have to have a path of how they're going to get from point A to point B. And I didn't know what mine was at the time, but I found out, you know, I banged on Richie Havens' door one night till 3 o'clock in the morning till he finally answered it. And he said to me, with persistence like that, you're going to go very far. And we did. And then with the Who, I did the same thing. I was on my way to a job with my chef clothes on, and I saw him out standing out in the parking lot. And I went to the first guy I saw, and I said, I want to meet Roger Daltrey. And he said, no, you're not. And I said, okay. And then one thing led to another, and I did. When I wanted to meet Ken Hensley, I waited in the lobby of a hotel. They went out the door. They went, did the show. They came back. 4 hours I sat in that lobby until he walked back to the door, and I went, Ken. And he looked, and I went, can I have 1 minute? And he walked over, and I said, I got a cassette tape I want to talk to you about. And he went, you drink beer? And I went, yeah. He said, I'll be right back down in the lobby, in the bar. He said, meet me in the bar, and we'll have a beer and talk about it. Everybody I've ever worked with, even Kevin, I've always went, I want to work with that person, and whatever it took for me to get there, I did it.
That's fantastic. You talk to a lot of people that really are hoping for luck, and reading your story, it's like you can see that you've put in the grind to make things happen.
Yeah, I think it was think it was Richie. I think it was Richie. I can't remember. I think it was Richie that told me that I always had to keep the three P's. And as long as I had the three P's, that's what I got: persistence, patience, and perseverance. If I had those three things, and I never lost any of those three things, I would find my way to the maze.
Right, exactly. But you're definitely a role model on that front. I think you've stuck with it all the way. Well, you're here today to talk about your song "One More Day." You wrote this one with Kevin Costner, with Adam Box, and that is the Kevin Costner, and Adam was with the Brothers Osborne. Why don't you take a minute and tell us a little bit about this song before we play it?
I was sitting in a room, my studio, and my son's room. He's a freshman in college, just at the end of his first year now. And his bedroom, he was still a senior in high school. His bedroom was right across the hall from my studio. And I was writing that record. And I just started playing this piano part. And I just watching the wolves going under my wheels. And I was looking at his bedroom. And I was just like saying, and the way I deal with God every day is he's just my buddy. And some days I'm mad at him, and some days I'm not. Some days I just go, hey, dude, what's up? What is this going on here? Why is this happening? And then some days I'll go, will you give me a break? You know what I mean? I just have a conversation with God all the time. And that day, I just went, you know, buddy, if I died, if you cut me a little slack, give me one more day. You know, and it had a little sense of humor to it, but it was about that. It was just like when I die and I get up there, and if I'm in the middle of something when I die, can you give me one more day just to finish that, please? You know, and Kevin had a different take on it, which is really beautiful. Kevin's take on it is, will you give my buddy one more day? Not talking about me, but talking about, he's going, hey, will you give my buddy over here, Don or Bill or Susie, whatever, will you give that person a break, give him one more day? And then when he gets to the end of the song, then he goes, and when he does it, he goes, oh, and by the way, maybe give me one more day too, you know? So, because he performs that song with his band, and he does a great job, really. Thinks it better than I do.
Well, I don't know I would agree with that, but I do enjoy his band for sure. I'd love to play it now. Are you ready?
Yeah, I want to say one thing though before we start about this. One of the things that makes this video so special is Gary Rossington and I go back 50 years, and we were very, very, very close. And when I asked him if he would play on this song, him and Ricky Medlock jumped right down, came Nashville. Gary played on this song. He played his ass off. And then, as we all know, he died a few weeks ago. And this is something that's really dear to me, because I have this memory of Gary for the rest of my life, and he does play his butt off on it. So I just wanted to bring that to note.
Yeah, that was one of the first things I noticed, because I'm a big fan of those guys anyway. To see that, one of the last recordings is pretty touching in general.
Yeah.
Well, let's play it. You're watching H. Jack Williams' video for One More Day on AIM Country Music Television. Wow, I love the emotion packed into the song. Nice work.
Adam, I gotta tell you, I think it's just Adam's drumming from all the way through, but from that solo out,
Yeah.
Adam's I mean, he never stops. He just keeps ramping it up.
Right.
I mean, it's just amazing.
Yeah, he powered it through, didn't he?
Oh yeah.
Does he also play guitar on some other things? I was thinking.
Oh yeah, he played on my record. On my record on Halfway to Hell on the album, he played a lot of the guitars.
Okay, good. I was a little bit bewildered by that because I thought he was a guitar player, and then he's banging it out on the drums on this one.
No, he's a drummer. I mean, his trade is the drummer, but through the years, Adam is one of those guys. Adam has just got talent running out of his ears. He's got so much talent, he can do anything. And he's going to be somebody big and famous one of these days.
Exactly.
He just has so much talent.
And you had Moose Brown from Silver Bullet Band. He was on keyboards on this.
Yep.
Awesome. He does a bunch of stuff too, doesn't he? Just other than Silver Bullet Band, he's in producing, writing, and everything else.
He's the biggest session player in town. In Nashville, he's probably the most sought after keyboard player in town. He's great. I mean, listen.
Right. And then Gary Rossington on guitar. That had to be quite a little band to be with. What was it like being in the room with that many folks with that kind of a resume?
Well, they weren't all there at the same time, so it was beautiful because when Goose came in and doing keyboard parts, we just had little. When Gary was in there, Ricky was there, Gary was there, I was there, Adam was there, Kevin's right-hand man and one of his directors was there filming it. My publisher was there, and we all, when Gary started playing that solo, I think every one of us, the back of the neck, our hair just stood straight up. I mean, it was just like, woo! I mean, it was just to watch that man play guitar like after 50 years of doing it. It was just.
Yeah, it's amazing that there's still an original tune and a emotion left in that guitar that's different than what he's already played. That was another unique piece of his work. Yeah. Well, I've really enjoyed the visit today. Let's wrap up with where the folks can find you online, on stage, and where to buy or listen to all this music.
JackWilliamsMusic.com is my website.
Okay. Then they can go there and get everything else, right?
Yeah, everything's on there. Everything's on there, even if they want to get in touch, whatever. I mean, it's all there. And it's got the new video right on the front page. And then there's a couple other videos. W. Earl Brown did a video with me, a song called Speaking Again. That's on there. And I got to give one more shout out to Adam Box. Adam Box, 2 years ago, he produced and filmed a video of me doing Wonderful World, and that's on there. And that's pretty awesome. That's
a great one. We have that on AIM, so people should tune into that one too. That's Louis Armstrong was always a favorite, but you did that song justice. It's not like a complete retool, but it is definitely your version of the song. It's really well done. People check that one out.
Thank you. You're
welcome. Well, thanks for coming on, Jack. I've had a great time visiting with you today.
Well, thank you for having me. It's been an honor. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
It's been fun.
Ladies and gentlemen, H. Jack Williams. So, what do you guys think? Is One More Day going to be your new favorite song? This has been Mark Gilliatt for AIM Country Music Television. Thanks for watching.